ZoZo, age 9, busting out the boxing. Run her mouth too often, much too brown for running around, running out of options. All that running around, she found some brothers down in Compton on some stallion stomping. They taught her how to hold the reins, cloud without a faucet. That's how she found her calling, and now she running circles round them all. The ground is calling, and she ain't turned the volume down. English ride up at a West Coast bounceaholic. Now we caught up to the scene, foot out of the stirrup. Her points are down, an English crown should now be unheard of. Remember what you learned in Compton. Out of the circumstance comes the chance to prove that the crown could deserve her.
Hello, everyone. I am Zoie Brogdon, and I am so excited to welcome you to this very special Women's History Month exclusive interview. Some of you may know me as an equestrian. My journey started when I was just 9 years old with the Compton Deer Posse, a program that introduced me to the world of horseback riding. From that moment on, I was very fortunate to be mentored and trained by some of the most influential figures in the sport. So far, I've been blessed with an amazing career filled with unforgettable moments. I've won numerous ribbons and awards, including the 2021 USHJA Zone 10 Individual Gold Medal and the 2021 USHJA National Reserve Championship, just to name a few. Beyond the competition ring, my media presence and crossover appeal between high fashion and Western culture have led to standout opportunities, including a featured role in the Sacred Souls music video, Lucid Girl, the Forever 21 and Compton Cowboys campaign, and multiple collaborations with Beyonce, including Netflix's Beyonce Bowl halftime show, the Academy Awards tribute to Venus and Serena Williams, and the Daddy Lessons music video, and so many other print media and television appearances that have helped me share my love for the equestrian sport with a wider audience. I recognize that I stand on the shoulders of giants, trailblazers who have paved the way for riders like me to even step into the ring. I've been incredibly fortunate to meet, learn from, and/or share the arena with some of the sport's biggest legends, including my sheroes, Kathleen Kushner, the first woman to ride for the U.S. Equestrian Team, a silver medalist in show jumping at the 1964 Tokyo Olympics, and the first licensed female jockey in the U.S., Mavis Spencer, a successful show jumper, former U.S. Equestrian ambassador, and someone I truly really admire in this sport, and Jessica Springsteen, an accomplished show jumping champion rider who has represented the United States Equestrian Team in international competitions and won a silver medal in team jumping at the 2020 Summer Olympics, held in 2021 in Tokyo. At last, but certainly not least, one of the women I am truly honored to be in the company of today, equestrian legend Donna Cheek, the first Black woman to compete in the U.S. Equestrian Team and a true trailblazer in this sport. Today, I have the incredible honor of sitting down with Donna Cheek for an exclusive conversation. We'll be discussing our unique journeys, both in and out of the sport, how we got started in the sport, challenges we've encountered, and what has motivated us to succeed. We will also share stories of perseverance, from the injuries we've sustained to the times we've fallen and had to will ourselves to get back into the saddle. And we'll wrap up by talking about our current projects and our shared commitment to paving the way for future generations in the equestrian sport. So please join me in welcoming Donna Cheek. Hi, Miss Donna.
Hey.
How are you? How are you doing today?
I'm wonderful. I'm so glad to be here with you to chat at leisure.
I'm so happy to see you again and so happy to have this conversation. So thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it.
You're
So
welcome.
let's start with a little bit. So, I mean, I first heard about you through Reginald Dorsey, a Bill Pickett rodeo rider and a real Black cowboy. He has actually played my dad in the Beyonce's Daddy Lessons music video, funny enough. And he told me that I just had to meet you. I mean, who would have thought today would have happened from all those years ago when I first heard about you? So truly, I am honored. But tell us a little bit about yourself. So where are you from and how did you get started within the sport?
Well, okay, so I was actually born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I'm the youngest of 5 children. I have 4 older brothers.
Oh my God.
I know. It wasn't easy coming up, really, and it was almost like horses. As long as I was doing something horse related, then nobody gave me any hassle. And, because having 4 brothers, it's just like, please, it was really bad. So at 7 is when I first started taking riding lessons. And prior to that, the Breyer horses?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I had my little collection of Breyer horses and I would
horse girl.
them leap around and do stuff. And all my coloring books were horse coloring books, and I wouldn't color my horses pink and purple. Mine would be chestnut with 4 white socks, or a
Yeah.
bentley, or just real colors, and so as far as the love for horses and the desire to be with them, I was just born with that, because no one in my family knew anything about horses. I was just a horse crazy little girl, and I had parents that were willing to indulge that. When I first started taking riding lessons, my mom did the research, and she says, okay, I found someone that can teach you Western and someone that could teach you English. And I didn't know enough about the two. And I said, well, what's the difference? And she said, well, English is supposed to be harder than Western. And I was like, okay, well, I want to do that.
There you go.
The hard one. Okay. So I've never ridden Western, like in a formal sense. I always rode English. My very first horse show, when I was still 7, because it was a walk trot, I had all of my equipment came from Goodwill, because I had a sweater on, because I didn't have a rat catcher and a choker. I just had a sweater that had a high neck.
Yeah.
Okay, and my rubber boots and pants, jeans tucked in, and I did my walk trot thing, and I won my ribbon on Toby, and Toby had one blind eye. He was a liver chestnut with one blind eye. That was it.
I love
was just like a goner. I mean, everything about horses I love. Everything. There wasn't anything about them and caring for them that was a chore. And all during my career, I drug my parents along. My parents probably would have preferred if I had stopped a long time ago, but I was just like, no, I got to do this. And I was continuing to progress, and my dad would have to match my commitment and my progression with the resources. So I could just keep taking it to another level. Never had the idea of, or a concept of where I was going to go, because I just, lived in the moment. You may not understand what that's like, being inundated with social media that's so easily accessible to you. But back in the day, you stay in your own bubble, and there's no influence, that positive or negative. There's just no influence except what you dream of and the support of your family. Really different than today. Really different.
100%. We have very similar stories. I actually tried many different sports before even going to horseback riding. I'm actually an only child. Fun fact, so I didn't have anybody to, I guess, distract them from all the random stuff I was doing. But I tried every sport, and I landed on horseback riding. It really clicked because I lacked focus as a child, and my parents were like advised in grade school to try like vestibular therapy to help me concentrate. I was very hyperactive, very energetic, and so anything that would like click in, I could lock into. That's what I'd hyper focus on. And after like experimenting with like gymnastics and included like trampoline work and like really bounce around doing a whole bunch of stuff, they asked if like horseback riding, like that same like bouncy rhythm of like horseback riding could have the same effect as like jumping on trampoline. And then my mom saw like a sign for a summer camp in Burbank where she used to work, and that said that they were enrolling for horseback riders, and so, or at least like for summer camp purposes, like, do you want to join horseback riding summer camp? And she was like, sure, go for it, do it. And then after that, they found the Conjure Posse, and I've been riding ever since then. So I'm very happy that like our parents were very supportive in those in those actions, and giving us the all they could, I guess, to find this sport, because it was me as a little kid. I also knew nothing about English versus Western. I was just like, I see that horse, let me get on it. And that was all. That's all I knew.
That's
But I read a
cute.
quote where you said, unfortunately, my parents didn't have the financial resources to purchase the level of horse that I needed. With me, I've got a Volkswagen against a Ferrari. I've got to gain some skills so my Volkswagen can compete with the Ferrari.
Yeah.
How did you get the Volkswagen to win against the Ferrari? I also need to know that. That's
Okay, I know, right? Okay, so first of all, you have to imagine that when I was coming up, a Ferrari wasn't your imported warm blood because we didn't have them then. Okay, so a Ferrari back then was, a horse that was made. Typically, what we used were thoroughbreds off the track. Okay, and granted, you know, within thoroughbreds, there were those that were Ferraris and those that weren't, but we all were competing with thoroughbreds.
Mhm.
Okay. Some of them, had heavier bone than others. Some of them had a better mind, better talent, and what have you. So, so I just kind of wanted you to understand, what I was working with was the same breed,
Mhm.
but not made and not necessarily with the best attributes for show jumping.
Mhm.
Okay. And how I did it, first of all, one of the things that I started doing very early in my career is I started going to the gym and getting fit because I couldn't ride as many horses as the rich riders could who had several, access to several or owned several. I didn't have that. So all my life I've been going to the gym and also running in the mountains because where I live now, I live on 50 acres in the mountains. Okay.
Incredible. Oh, I got to visit
Very,
you.
very mountainous. Not good, to have horses, but definitely good for cardio and
Mhm.
building leg strength and building, mental toughness because we're running hills.
Mhm.
And I did that very early with my father because my father is a track man. Not only does he have a PhD in psychology, which was the other component of my preparation, but he was also a competitive athlete.
Oh,
So
sick.
he and I are very much alike. And he's raised me up in his image because that's what I was hungry for. And the competitiveness that he saw in me is what he had. So he understood it and how to
Mhm.
channel that. And so when you talk about trying to, make your compete with Ferraris when you don't have one, it was really what can I do with what I've got?
Mhm.
And how do I maximize that? So that, because I'm a little person, I'm still just 5'1", okay? And I weigh 114 pounds now, And so I had to be strong as well as finesse my rides because I
Mhm.
couldn't muscle my ride around at all. And
Absolutely.
so, and thoroughbreds, as you know, they are sensitive. It's a different kind of ride than a warm blood. I think that your warm bloods are it takes a little more. Now, granted, there are some hot ones, but it takes a little more to create that package and that balance and so that you can maximize their potential and they can explode over the fences that you point them at, because
Absolutely.
I've ridden warm bloods later in my career, but at
Mhm.
that time, it was thoroughbreds. And so, really, in a nutshell, it was me being as strong and fit as possible
Mhm.
so that when my coach asked me to do something, I was physically capable of doing it for the length of time that he had me repeat, 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 and it was taking advantage of every little opportunity that I had. And that meant all the mental preparation that I had to do. so that when I actually had that one horse in that one class, that one day, okay, that I could make the most of it.
Absolutely. I'm
Mhm.
very grateful that my parents were able to kind of through the grapevine, my horse came to me. He is a imported warm blood. He's a Holsteiner
Uh-oh.
and he came in from I want to say Germany, but he started off with one person and he came actually across seas with an injury that they were hoping to kind of heal and mend and eventually he'd be able to go back into that top level where he was supposed or at least had the potential to go to, but they were never really quite it was never really quite perfect enough. It didn't mend itself well enough. And so from that one person, it flowed to another, and then it actually made its way into the hands of the Compton Cowboys. And they knew that I was a prospective English rider and wanting to jump and wanting to do more. They're like, here is this horse that has the potential, and we know could probably do it. You just got to try. But I was really young and I was still a new rider. I didn't have that strength yet. And I'm thinking I'm being like outhorsed a little bit. But I kind of said to myself, and with support of everyone around me, just keep going. You just have to catch up to the horse. And it was a little game of cat and mouse because there'd be moments where I'm like, oh, I did it. I kind of figured it out. I got it. And then he'd spin me off the next day. And I'm like, okay, so maybe not. But with more and more like persistence and figuring out kind of what works for me and keeping that horse, I guess, physically fit and sound and safe, and also starting to, I guess, mentally get myself prepared and ready for this horse. And then growing up and I mean, I think I got that horse when I was like 15 maybe. So still gaining that strength to be able to ride and learn, I guess, what buttons work for him was really instrumental in I guess the way I ride now. Since I've always thought I was a very natural field rider, and I
Mhm.
like to let the horses tell me what works for them instead of kind of, well, this is what they say I should do. This is the
Right.
proper way to do it. So throw away the spurs, let them tell me if they need it, or do I need different tack? Do I need to change the bit? Don't give me the bit that you came with. What do you think works for you? And so I've learned to
That's
really
good.
listen to these animals and really work with them. So it's really inspirational to know that even if you didn't have the horse bred to do the job, you were able to listen to them and work with them to have them be as effective and as courageous as they can be in that show arena. So that's really, really beautiful.
Well, I
But
commend you. I commend you for your approach with horses because this is the thing. We can love them, which you and I absolutely do,
absolutely.
but coming to them with a respect, and the respect is that horses will always be honest.
Yes.
Okay. And so when a horse comes in with a whole lot of gear in its mouth, and you're like, you know what? I'm just going to go in with a plain snaffle and let this
Mm-hmm.
horse show me, what he really needs. And building your equipment, your approach, your program, because every horse has to have a different program because they're individuals.
Mhm.
But doing that based on what the horse is telling you, that's the only way that I've ever approached any horse in my life.
Absolutely. Because it's not a fight. It never should be a
Mm-mm.
fight to figure out or to, I guess, have them submit because it's not about submission or having a certain type of power or dominance over them. It's really about it's a partnership. We're both trying
It
to do
absolutely
something. I
is.
mean, we took them out of their natural habitat of the wild and we're asking them to jump over random poles on the ground and at certain levels. And it's incredible that they even do it for us. And so
It's
to
true.
give them that trust and love back is really all I care about.
And
But
I always felt that a horse that loved me would be a
mhm,
horse that would try its heart out for me.
absolutely,
And
100%.
right? And so consequently, that's even though there came a time in my career where I can afford the groom and there's times when, it's necessary, I do as much as I possibly can because that's when the communication starts, when
Mhm.
I'm grooming this horse and I get a feel for where his head is at and the energy level, the level of distraction and what have you, and then that developing, the day in and day out workouts, developing trust,
Absolutely.
always taking my horse out on the trails. And show horses are notorious for being spooky and
Up.
volatile, and I'm like, you know what, it's like, trust me, Okay. And squirrels are jumping out and deer are running across. It's like, hey, you just got to trust me. We're going to ride through this. And all of those little tests that are not hard on their legs, that add to their enthusiasm, avoiding burnout, all of that stuff. I was absolutely a trail riding advocate, because
Same here.
really.
That's where you learn that connection. I mean,
Yep.
put them back where they're supposed to be. Don't put them in the arena where it could be nerve-wracking. I know horses that are weird at the gate. Like, let's take the gate away and let's go back outside. There'll be natural jumps if we want to even attempt it. But I mean, let me see how you relax. Let's just hang out together. Why not? Like, I'd rather hang out with my horse than ask them to do something that could be potentially nerve-wracking to them. We can always build our way to that, but starting
Absolutely.
outside and putting them back where they want to be, and we can do it together.
Absolutely.
That's how you build that connection. Absolutely, 100%.
And
that's
and I think that's the reason why I've avoided injury my whole
Mhm.
career. And I've had some
Injured.
gnarly. One is because I've always been like super fit.
Mhm.
Okay. And the other is because there was relationship. And even though I've been in some gnarly wrecks, it was like, I knew it was coming. Okay. It was unavoidable. It happened. The horses did their best to help me out in the situation.
Mhm.
And but I definitely feel that I had some wrecks that could have been so much worse if there wasn't a certain level of trust, because you can't jump thousands and thousands of fences and not crash. It
Absolutely.
happens,
Yeah.
But what happens is when you have relationship, when you have trust, then you come back from the crash. You
Absolutely.
come back faster and you come back having your trust intact and your relationship with your horse intact,
100%. 100%.
right?
2 years ago, I got into my first, or I guess my worst accident. I was training a difficult horse. It was truly like the worst circumstance. My parents just left to go like to a wedding, like what's it called in Napa. I was like left home alone. I was like, let me go to the barn regardless. Like I can do it. I'm literally doing the same thing I normally do. Ride a couple of horses I got to, ride my own, go home. I had a great day. But the first horse that I rode that day, I was riding one of my friend's horses. He threw me off. I broke 3 bones in my back and I had to go to the hospital. That was like, oh my gosh, what great timing. The same day my parents leave, I have to be in the hospital. And at that same time, my horse Ninja had an injury that he was in rehab for. And so for that year, I kind of thought my career was over for a little bit. There was one day I was visiting Ninja and we kind of shared that like, hey, you broken, I'm broken, we broken together kind of moments. And there was kind of like a weird, like, you know what, we got this. I'm a heel, you're gonna heal, and we're just gonna work our way back to where we were and hopefully do more and more. Because I always knew that this horse loves his job. I know he really does enjoy competing. He enjoys jumping, and I didn't want to take that away from him just because he hurt himself. And I didn't want to take it away from me because I knew how much I love this sport. And so after that year and a half of recovery, me and my horse returned to a split rock jumping tour at Santa Anita Park. And at our final day of competition, we placed second out of 40 riders in a meter. And that's something I never really thought, honestly, I never thought we'd get back there. And so I was curious, have you actually ever had that self-doubt and that moment of maybe I'd want to give up?
Not because of injury. My frustration had always been trying to do more with less.
Mhm.
And I've retired my career has been really long, but I've retired multiple times because I believe that I've had a love-hate relationship with my sport.
Mhm.
Loving the horses, but hating the fact that money is what prevents me from doing all that in my mind I know that I could do.
Mhm.
And so I've definitely retired out of frustration for, what was happening in my career. Maybe more times than I can count,
Absolutely.
I
Understandable.
realistically maybe about 3 times I've retired. And then something happens and I get lured back and it's like, and all the time I'm retiring, mind you, I'm in the gym. I'm running hills. I'm staying. I don't know what kind of retirement you call that, but
Oh.
in my mind, I was
I
done.
have to sit
know?
down.
Yes, but I got to do something. So I might as well go to the gym. I might as well do my cardio. I mean, what else is there? So yeah. So that's kind of been, my reasons. And because it's the sport is,
It's difficult. It's hard. It's hard to stay in and continue with it. It's hard to be professional, amateur, all levels. It is hard if you don't have those resources. It's almost discouraging in a way to be in there. But I was curious. I suffer from performance anxiety when it comes to my sport, and it stems from, I guess there's always it's kind of twofold of like I want it so badly that I want to be the best at it, but at the same time I'm so nervous that I won't be, I guess, appeasing myself in my own like my mental image of what I can do. Like if I lost a class, I was like I didn't do the best to my standards because I've known that I can do better and I've seen myself do better. So I was curious if you've ever suffered from performance anxiety as a young rider or even as a person doing big competition, and how did you handle it if you did?
Well, first of all, I have a confession to make. I was like a really, really bad loser. Okay. As a little girl,
Yeah.
you would be amazed at the storm that I could create when I would make a mistake. And we're talking about local CD shows. So I was really, really little. And my mom, she knew exactly how to handle it because my dad was a poor loser too. Okay. And so, okay, so that part, I think that it was a combination of growing out of it and also having a father that my dad was actually a sports psychologist for the Los Angeles Dodgers at
Wow.
one when Dusty Baker was actually a player back in the day. And so he was called on, and that's not his gig. He was just doing that as a side thing because, being an athlete and having those skills. So he absolutely taught me some things that I share in my book with
Mhm.
regards to um, visualization, with regards to breathing exercises that actually lower your heart rate so
Mhm.
that the anxiety and the heart rate, that kind of keeps you from focusing and keeps you from executing as an athlete, getting all of those things under control. So from a very young age, I practiced that, not really knowing that it was special because that's just what my dad shared with me.
Mhm.
So, um, so I've always been good at being in control of my anxiety and channeling that into preparation, channeling that into my pre-competition routine, which was something that, it was crazy when I was doing research for the book. There is stuff that is presented now that athletes are doing that it's like, wait a minute, there's a name for that because this is just what I did, and part of it was me as far as the journaling. Um after after lessons, I would journal everything. I've got books and books of how my horse did and how I was feeling and what worked. No one told me that. That was just something I did. I
Mhm.
mean, when you got one and you're done, that leaves enough time for journaling. It
Yes.
wasn't like I had a
I mean, you got to
stable
hang
book,
out at the barn.
right?
You
Right?
got to do something.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'll just write. So the journaling is really important to see, because you can't keep everything in your mind. I didn't realize exactly what I was doing, but now, I know there's a name for all of that and a purpose for all of that. And all those little things come together for that winning mindset, that ability to get into the zone, which is what every athlete is attempting to do. Every
Absolutely.
time you step on the court, in the ring, in the arena, you want to pursue that elusive place. And the zone is up here. The zone doesn't happen with being in the gym. The zone doesn't happen because you're throwing your leg over a lot of horses. No, the zone happens up here. And that's where it's a level playing field. Because I prepared more up here than the little girls who had all those horses had to, because I had no other option. And so my circumstances forced me to do some things that were really above my age level because I was so ambitious, but yet limited. And so I acquired some skills that, to this day, I mean, all of those things are transferable.
100%. For me, I like to tell myself that it's just like practice. And if that honestly makes me a little bit slower, I've probably slowed down my mind. I might not exactly get in the zone that I'm still working on getting there, but reminding myself it's just another practice day definitely makes me more careful and a little bit more attentive to remembering the sport is dangerous and I have to be safe whenever I'm doing anything. At my highest level of competition, and I have been in the zone, I could really be attempting some wild things. And I remember when I won nationals, I did an entire course, no stirrups, because I lost one. I was like, forget it. You don't need it. Just go without it. And somehow I did it. And somehow I won that specific competition. But for me, it will take time. And so definitely we'll get to your book, but learning, I guess, different methods of putting yourself in certain headspaces to be able to accomplish your tasks are very, very, very important. But I
Absolutely.
wanted to talk about you becoming the first Black woman to represent the U.S. Equestrian Team in international show jumping. That is amazing. That is so cool. Oh my God. So what was that like? Did you
You're
feel
so
pressure being
sweet.
the first Black woman? Like, tell me about it.
That's so sweet. I appreciate your enthusiasm. Only another equestrian could have a real concept of what that means.
Yeah.
And that's why, your enthusiasm just warms my heart. It really does. So, okay, so this is the thing. When I was doing all of that, I had no clue the ramifications at all. I had very early, I had a publicist and I had an agent. I had a team because the team was about, fundraising and getting me out there. Because if I appeared to be, talented or a celebrity, then people want to jump on board, right? And then it
100%.
opens yourself up for opportunities. And for me, opportunities it was just about, money for training and competing. So I here again, you have to understand that back then you're in a bubble because there is no social media. So here I am in my bubble. And that's the way that my whole career was. And so nothing, I mean, we would get Jet Magazine, and I remember, whoa, I was in Jet Magazine, and whoa, I was in Essence Magazine, I was in Ebony because my parents, they subscribed to that. But I wouldn't see it until I'd come home on a break or something.
Yeah.
So to be honest with you, it didn't mean anything until way later. Of
Mhm.
course, my team made something out of it. And so I saw it, oh, this is a tool that can be used so that I can get more and do more, you
Absolutely.
know? And so, when it was happening, and even months and years after it happened, it didn't mean anything to me. It didn't. Because, and I tell you what, I think it's a better place to be than now when young people are so exposed and you know, that exposure is normal. It's like nobody ever knew or cared or took a picture of what I ate. Okay. That was my business, you know, where I was, what I was doing, nobody knew. And consequently, there's not a lot of, you know, evidence of what my training program was like. But
Yeah.
it was just, you know, it's blinders on, tunnel vision. There was no distractions. And I don't know if you could imagine what that's like, but that has to attribute to the ability to do your best when there's nobody was filming me and posting it when, you know, I wrecked or fell off or did. So different, so different.
I'm
So
so happy I don't have that many fail
later
videos.
in what?
I'm so happy I don't have that many fail videos because oh my gosh, they're embarrassing. They're embarrassing. Social media is a blessing and a curse.
It is, absolutely. It is. And I think, and could be, you know, just because of my generation, but I've experienced both. And I think it's much better to not have it. I really do. Because I never did trip off of, you know, I never went through any of the angst that young women have to go through. The comparisons and the lack of self-worth I never experienced that because I was around horses all the time, and then people that rode horses, and if I had feelings, it was because this live person had more horses than me, you know. It wasn't some image that was, you know, crafted to be fake and phony that I was aspiring to, and or putting myself out there, but even when I was uncomfortable with it, because that's just what's done or that's what's expected. So you know, so I'm not really convinced that the environment now is conducive to mental health, self-worth and self-esteem, focus. I don't know if it's conducive to developing the grit that it takes when there aren't shortcuts. I think that now there's an expectation of faster, quicker, and more, whereas that was never part of my world. You know, more and fast. It was incremental. It was grinding it out. It was lots of sweat, and there was blood added into that sweat, and that's what you do.
100%.
And it ain't pretty. And it doesn't have to be pretty because nobody had a phone.
There you go.
So it was ugly. You know?
But I also wanted to bring up that you were inducted into the 1997 Women's Sports Hall of Fame, and that's also a generous accomplishment. I wanted you also to remember that you starred in your own NBC After-School Special, One More Hurdle, the Donna Cheek Story. That's cool. What was that experience like, and how does it, I guess, bring into this entire, I guess, I know you don't say your media presence is that important to you, but do you carry these things really close to you and into your heart?
Well, when you bring them up, I think it's pretty cool.
It is.
I don't think about it, and it's not something that, okay, I can tell you this. When we were shooting One More Hurdle, I did have a moment of, because the first day that I reported on set, and crew and the cast and every catering and everybody was there, I did have this moment like, wow, they're all here because of me. Okay. I thought that was kind of cool that it was because of me. Then I got distracted with catering because the food was The food was really good. And so it would be like, whoa, I'd get there really early. And granted, I had the script and I knew all of my lines and that part was easy. And then it was just fun. It was
Mhm.
fun because the whole, environment was comfortable for me. And everybody was there, to tell my story. And here again, um, there was there wasn't even though I had that awareness, wow, this is all for me, I also had an awareness that, I've got to be good because
Mhm.
all of these people are expecting me to be good at what they ask me to do. So I wanted everyone to be happy. I wanted I'd get mad if it took more than one take. I mean, internally, it's like, because the director is Nima Barnett. And Nima
Mhm.
Barnett is very active and she does Brown Sugar. She's a director for that. And she and Ava DuVernay, they're just like in that same category. And Nima was my director for One More Hurdle. And she was so sweet because she was helping me with the emotional scenes and stuff because I had to cry. And here again, I didn't know, I didn't really know what I was a part of. I didn't really know how special it was because it's not like, I'm taking selfies on set. It's not like I posted anything because we didn't have that. And
Yeah.
so it was just those experiences, they just kind of come and then they go. Um, I do remember being really excited when the family, we all got together because NBC had like this special showing for it, and the family was there. And I do remember a picture of my family together when we went to this um premiere kind of thing. I don't know what they do for after school specials. And then I remember going to the Image Awards because it did win an Image Award, and that was kind of cool,
Yes, it is.
yeah, that was fun. And just hanging out with folks and meeting people, and that was fun. And but I was really good at compartmentalizing because I remember, because Reggie played one of my brothers, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so Reggie was there, Clyde was one of my brothers, then another guy was one of my, so only three brothers were depicted, I believe.
Mhm.
And I remember it being a bigger deal for them than it was for me. And the
Yeah.
reason why is because this was something for their resume. This was something that they were hoping to lead to other things, you know? And I remember they're like, oh, you're going to get an agent and are you going to be acting? And because that's just was their thing. And I'm like, ew,
That's not what
no.
I do.
Right? Because I was like, I wasn't even tempted. It was like, I'm not an actor.
Yeah.
I ride horses. The reason why I'm acting is because I ride horses. So when we're done here, I'm going back to riding horses, and had no desire, zero, to do anything else except what I did with One More Hurdle.
I also wanted to ask you, I know you've written a book, and I think that's awesome because I'm also writing a book, and we have an incredible writer and illustrator, Saxon Moore, and that will be coming out soon. But I wanted to ask about your book and what it's about, what you're talking about, anything really that jumps out at you that you want to tell me.
Well, the title kind of says it all. The
Mhm.
Power of Mental Toughness for
Mhm.
Young Athletes Simplified.
Mhm.
Okay, that's the title of my book, and we're kind of coming full circle.
Yeah.
All the things that we talked about, that how I coped with not having the quality of horses that my competitors had, what I did when I retired. We don't really have an off season, but I address, off season training programs. I address all the things that as athletes that we struggle with when we are aspiring to be great.
Mhm.
And I also touched on how it all happens up here when it comes to consistency,
Yeah.
when it comes to grit, when it comes to overcoming injury, and how that affects you mentally.
Mhm.
And 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 I deal with pre-competition routines and a sample of what can be done. And I talk about visualization, and I talk about um, all the stuff that athletes encounter, and we're all so different.
Mhm.
And that's why I cover a wide range of issues that athletes could encounter, young athletes who haven't, who are still finding their way. Because mine was, there was a lot of trial and error, but I didn't have a book that was put together for me. Because at the back of this book, well, first, all throughout the book, I have these prompts, and the prompts are called Enter the Zone. So that when I'm dealing with a particular topic, there's an Enter the Zone section
Mhm.
that prompts thoughts, and thoughts that are put down on paper, because at the back of the book is a workbook journal.
Mhm.
So that after you read through the books, a book, and there may be certain prompts that you answer in your head, then at the back, then you start actually going through them, putting pen to paper. And I really emphasize the pen to paper instead of the little phone apps and what have you, because there's,
A
as
different
I,
connection.
there's that connection when you're actually writing and you're actually touching. and
Mhm.
and it's not a connection that I've made up. It's a connection that the experts have proven, that that tactile connection with your brain and memory.
Mhm.
And keep in mind, when we function as athletes, there's muscle memory, and there's a mental memorization as well. That's part of executing. So memory is a critical component to translate this study, this practice, into actual competition. Does that make sense?
100%. Absolutely. You're somewhat teaching similar to Kobe's Mamba mentality in that. And so that's really cool to see athletes across all different types of sports all finding that same conclusion of finding their way into the zone and doing things for their headspace to get there.
You
I
know?
recently created a short film about performance anxiety in the equestrian sport. And it had to do with something one of my trainers told me when I was very young. And she told me if I'm not nervous, I'm not ready.
Well, nerves are standard.
Hmm.
It it's not a matter of having them. It can be the first step of being ready. It can be the impetus for getting ready,
Hmm.
so that when the nerves happen, then that triggers the preparation for competition. So the nerves in and of themselves don't ready anybody. I mean, not to be contradictory, but I'm just taking it multiple steps further.
Hmm.
So,
Absolutely.
so having the nerves are the trigger to get ready.
Yes. 100.
That would be, and then the exercises that I present that the person acquires for themselves, because every athlete is so different, then that triggers, this is the start of my prep, because the nerves segue into preparation. And
100.
that's the way you
That's how you
make
get ready.
those nerves work for you.
Absolutely.
instead of against you.
But I want to get us a little silly
Yeah.
again. Last year, Snoop Dogg had some commentary at the Olympics,
Oh, yes.
and he
I
brought a
saw
whole
him.
new level of attention to this equestrian sport, especially from audience that have like never engaged with it before. And he was telling us how the horses were crip walking, and I'm thinking they're doing just a half pass, but you know, same thing. With urban culture having like such a big influence on mainstream trends and brands, do you think this kind of exposure can kind of help make the sport a little bit more accessible, a little bit easier for people to join in and find different ways to stay in it?
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so
Say whatever he wants to say, but I mean, unless
this
action
is
is being done.
this is what I think. I think that Snoop and Martha Stewart, I think that they made it entertaining.
Mhm.
I think they made it not so stuffy.
Okay.
Snoop, brings a lot of humor to all the sports that he was participating in.
Yes.
Okay.
You wore the outfit.
Yes. And so that part, was entertaining, but the issues in our sport run so much deeper than that
100%.
because it's not a race thing, it's a social economic thing. Our sport could be made more accessible at a local level.
100%. I'd love to see more of that. I would love to see more programs that can uplift communities, such as that Compton Cowboys programming, Compton Junior Questions, because truly without them, I would not have found my way into this. And having that one space specifically for Black kids to find their way into
Yes.
so instrumental in what I'm able to do today. And the West Palms, they now have a Michael Nyhouse Foundation grant that is also helping people, at least to help with show fees, because we know everything's a cost. So they help with show fees, trailing fees, little things, and they're at least helping riders that want to see themselves grow in the sport and at least try to break boundaries, get to higher levels, do more, and they're making that more accessible. So I know that we are starting to, and there is some programs that are slowly but surely getting into the mindset of how to make it accessible at lower levels. And hopefully once that is really well established and things can slowly start to become more of a community, we can raise the stakes a little bit more and ask for more. And we'll see how that goes. But I also wanted to ask you, I guess, what do you think about Beyonce and our cowboy culture? At least to me, she's bringing in a lot more awareness. And even if it is spectatorship, there is a lot more emphasis on the Black cowboy. And I think
oh yeah, because being a Black cowboy is so much more accessible than what you and I do. And having Bay out there, putting it on Front Street and I think that was awesome. It's about that visual that she created and then getting into country and Western music and winning an award for country and Western music and having that crossover and employing people like yourself for her videos. And I think that's just right? I think that's just awesome. Absolutely awesome. And
100%.
and if that can, and those are the little, I think those, when people like her, and we don't have a person, of that magnitude in our sport specifically, but it's people like her that can transcend and push the sport by leaps and bounds.
Thank you, Ms. Donna. Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Donna. This has been such an amazing conversation. And I'm so excited to have a chance to pay homage to you for Women's History Month and give you your much well-deserved flowers. I'm very, very excited to be able to get your book recently. I hope I can get a signed copy. Please, wink, wink.
Girl, I can hook you up. I can hook you up with a hardcover. How about that?
Thank you. But yeah, I just want to say thank you, and thank you everyone who will be watching this. So make sure to subscribe on this YouTube channel and share this conversation. Follow me on IG and TikTok. And yeah, Miss Cheek, how can we follow you, support you, purchase your book, the whole 9 yards?
Okay, so my book is available on Amazon. All they have to do is they can cut through all the noise and all the mess and just put my name in the search bar, okay, at Amazon. And then the stuff that I'm doing now, I post on my Facebook, Donna Cheek, first black member of the U.S. Equestrian Team.
I love
Yeah.
that. That's beautiful. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. It truly has been an honor. So thank you for joining me today.
It's been a pleasure, girlfriend, anytime. I can't wait to see you and give you a hug and, and just be there. I'd love to be at one of your competitions.
Well, thank you again, Miss Donna. It truly has been such a pleasure and such an honor. So thank you so much for being with me today and having this interview. I really, really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. Anytime.
Thank you. Well, bye, y'all. Thank you.
ZoZo, age 9, busting out the boxing, run 'em out too often, much too brown for running around, running out of options. All that running around, she found some brothers down in Compton on some stallion stomping. They taught her how to hold the reins, cloud without a faucet. That's how she found her calling, and now she running circles round them all. The crown is calling, and she ain't turned the volume down. English ride up at a West Coast bounceaholic. Now we caught up to the scene, foot out of the stirrup. Her points are down, an English crown should now be heard of. Remember what you learned in Compton. Out of the circumstance comes the chance to prove that the crown could deserve her.